I'm a strong fan and believer in auto-created assets. And when I speak about that, especially video and PMAX, so pictures and images.
All right, welcome back to the PPC Mastery Podcast. And today I have another special guest. It is Maximilian van 𝗂𝗂𝗃. Eyser? Shit, I messed it up.
Eyser.
Yeah, Eyser. That was it, Eyser. He's a senior digital growth strategist at Google. And, you mentioned yourself just now backstage as Max. So I think I'm going to call you Max as well. I've been following you on LinkedIn for a while, maybe 2 years or so. And it's really cool to see how you have built your personal brand on LinkedIn. Even though you're not a freelancer, usually you see freelancers building their personal brands to get clients and everything. But I think you have built a really solid personal brand, even though you are still working in-house at Google. So that's something that I want to definitely dive into. But before we go into your story as a senior digital growth strategist at Google, I just want to quickly ask you, what is something that you believe about Google Ads that most people would disagree with?
First of all, I gotta do a quick thank you for all the nice words, and thanks for having me on the podcast. Max from Eyser, Maximilian from Eyser, whatever language you wanted to go for, it all works. So I appreciate being here. And kicking it off with the question, what's one thing I believe about Google Ads that a lot of people will disagree with? I think I would have to go with Google AI and with all the automation that it does. And maybe a bit more specifically also looking at the current kind of 2025 and 2024. I think, and I know that's a very unpopular opinion, I'm a strong fan and believer in auto-created assets. And when I speak about that, especially video and PMAX, so pictures and images, because I think, especially looking at the last 1-2 years and where image generation, video generation with AI is going, not just on Google, but in the whole tech industry itself, and all the Google VO and Google image generation and everything. I think all people, and I know there are quite some out there that are big advocates of not trusting the auto-created assets or not trusting them yet. I'm pretty sure they will all be surprised in 2025, because I think there will be big processes or progresses, and it'll be exciting for a lot of advertisers, especially smaller ones that don't really have the production capacities to do images, videos. So long story short, auto-created assets in especially PMAX, and I'm happy to stand my ground on that opinion or forecast, even if you want to call it that way.
Nice one. Yeah, let's definitely unpack that. But before we do that, before we go into all the nitty gritty of it, let's take a couple years back. I looked at your LinkedIn profile. You've been working at Google now for about 5 to 6 years. How did you end up working at Google, and what was your first role there?
I'm at Google since a little more over 5.5 years. So I started here in Dublin in the EMEA headquarters in 2019, summer of 2019. So right before the pandemic then started a few months after. However, my first touch point was Google, and then also with the online marketing industry and everything was actually even 1 year before that. So I am from Germany. I grew up in the proximity of Cologne, went to university in Cologne for my bachelor's and master's in business. And during my master's, I did an internship at Google in Dublin, actually, where for 3 months I supported some of the Google Ads, or back then Google AdWords teams. And that was something that I found really interesting. Didn't really have any touch points with nothing, no account management, no digital marketing, no Google Ads, Google AdWords until that point. But it was really amazing, and it turned out to be successful from both sides. So Google was happy with what I was doing as well. I ended up having an offer for after my studies. So in 2019, in the summer, I started as back then an account manager for our SMB, so that's small, medium businesses, working with the German market and pretty much helping the smallest of advertisers setting up their ads, running them. And those were sometimes, your next door barbershop or the local kind of national e-commerce businesses, very, very small with very limited budgets back then. And also compared to today, also very limited scope of optimization. And I'm sure you're doing the PPC gig for quite a while as well. So you probably remember back then the biggest challenges were the extended text ads and having them completed and adding site links. And I remember during my onboarding, one of the biggest projects internally in Google at that moment was kind of the development of smart shopping campaigns and the rollout of value-based bidding. So smart bidding 2.0, not just maximize conversion, but conversion value. And that was kind of my everyday business. So talking to advertisers, helping them do that. And over the course of the last 5.5 years, I got to see a lot of different teams and organizations in Google. I then started working with bigger advertisers. I worked with our enterprise team in Portugal for half a year, helping them export or helping their advertisers export and internationalize to Germany and the German-speaking DACH region. And now since 1.5 years, I work as a senior digital growth strategist, still in Google in Dublin, still for the German market. But compared to when I started, nowadays, it's literally a handful or 20 to be precise advertisers and companies that I work with an average daily ad spend. I tried to do the math earlier. It's somewhere around 100 million divided by 20 companies in a year on average. So it does add up to pretty much a 5-figure daily average ad spend per company. And my job in that is also not really writing extended text ads anymore. It's more of the combination of being a consultant and an account manager. So a bit of a sparring partner, helping with strategy, talking with both the CEOs, CMOs, but also the Google Ads teams, and kind of figuring out the best of everything, how to grow digitally and how to, of course, play my part, which to some degree still is campaign optimization. So I'm still involved in all the Google Ads operational topics as well.
Yeah. So actually a frame that I didn't mention in the beginning is that you are here not on behalf of Google. So everything that you're sharing here is just from your own experience, helping businesses grow with Google Ads. And so now in your role as a digital growth strategist, you mentioned that your job is no longer to help clients with their ads or with site links, etc. Like, I'm sure that they have agencies to do that, or AI is making sure that all those things are covered. What are the things that you do as a senior digital growth strategist to help clients grow? What kind of conversations are you having with them? And could you tell us something about that?
Yeah, of course, happy to. It's actually to take that point from you. It's actually surprising, sometimes shocking to see how many of big, large, or medium, whatever you want to define that as, advertisers still struggle with the basics. So even though I'm not consulting on individual ads and ad creatives anymore, the fact to remind people of using the best practices, making sure that ad formats are right, making sure that the basics in an account are set up correct is actually something that surprised me a lot when I made that step at Google, from working with clients that, CEO run businesses where we have an ad spend of maybe 50, 100 euros per day, to now sometimes talking about like multinational companies with 20, 30,000 euro investment per day. And still they struggle with the same things. They still struggle with ad quality, with ad relevance. They struggle with their tracking. They struggle with having goals in mind. And I don't even mean Google Ads goals, but like business goals, as in, what do you even want to achieve with that? Do you want to grow your revenue? Do you want to decrease your cost? Do you want to be more efficient? Do you want to, what's it you want to do? And I think that's basically, that's a very long story, very, very short. But the main idea of what I do is, especially when I start working with businesses, kind of be a bit of devil's advocate and challenge them, because they all have huge internal marketing teams. They have agencies helping them. Sometimes I also work with the agencies then. But first of all, getting kind of the basics right, and getting a status quo of like, okay, where do we stand? What do we want to achieve? Where do we want to go from there? What have we tried in the past? What's working? What's not? And by the way, here's my recommendation of what I see millions of other advertisers doing, and you are far away from even trying that. And then from there on, take it in whatever direction it goes. And then, of course, the typical conversations come up of like, some businesses are more search heavy in a Google Ads specific content. Some are more upper funnel video heavy. Some want to achieve sales. Some want to generate leads. Some are out for awareness, and some don't even know what they're looking for. And then I'll take it from there also and try to help them.
Yeah, it's super interesting that you said that even some of the biggest brands, you would expect that they have like super solid foundation, but their basics, their fundamentals aren't in the right place. And that's also why Bob and I have been pushing the need for a solid foundation by doing the fundamentals right. We have been pushing that so much over the last couple of months, are going to continue to do so for the next year, because oftentimes people, Google Ad specialists, PPC experts, brands, they want the cool, advanced, shiny, advanced sounding tactic or strategy that is supposed to take their results to the next level. But the more I get more experience in business and as a Google Ad specialist, I realize that it's actually always those who do the fundamentals the best over and over are always Absolutely. Having the most success. So then from your perspective, as someone who is working at Google with these types of customers, these types of clients, these types of brands, what do you think are the most important key components to driving success or driving results with Google Ads when you look at sort of the basics or the fundamentals?
Mm-hmm. I think the absolute fundamental number one is measurement. I recently, I don't know where it was, I read this quote: "What we don't measure, we don't treasure." And at the end of the day, I think that holds true for everyone. I get it that when I speak with advertisers and I'm like, hey, do this and this and this, and they say, oh, but we don't really see an impact of making these changes for our business, I think then it's a fair objection. But at the other hand, it's also fair for anyone. And whether that's me as in Google, but external consultant, whether that's an agency, a freelancer, or an internal marketing expert or marketing manager discussing with their boss or manager, it's fair to say, hey, but why are we not measuring it? Like, what's stopping us from measuring? And again, like I said earlier, whatever we're going to measure, but let's measure something and let's take it from there and kind of do hypothesis of, okay, this is what we are having now. If we increase budget, if we decrease budget, if we go into this market, how is this going to affect the baseline? So number one, measurement. Number two, understanding what we are measuring and then building upon what do we want to achieve. So setting a goal. And I know that for a lot of companies, that's kind of very, very difficult. But if I've learned one thing at Google, it's a growth mindset. It's always, if there is an opportunity, if there is a headroom, if there is advertisers or competitors that are doing it better than a business, then let's make sure to catch up. Let's make sure to expand to this new market. Let's make sure to, if we can invest more for more revenue, for more return, let's do it. And let's not kind of just slow down and then focus on efficiency. And I'm not saying that's wrong, because looking at the economic situation all over the world, I think it's fair to also look at efficiency and, not just spend, mm-hmm. but doing it in kind of a right way. And if efficiency is the goal, then also follow up on that and actually follow through. Because what I see also a lot is just companies being stuck in this, we want to grow, but we don't want to invest more. And let's all be realistic. If that would be working, we'd all be doing that. But it is not. But I just wanted to add one thing, because you mentioned it also, this whole fancy, shiny, everything wants to do, everyone wants to do like amazing things. That's actually something that with a lot of the bigger and really successful businesses, I see less and less. So it seems like the more mature businesses get, the more they also realize what is working for them, and whether that's Google Ads or other platforms or certain strategies within Google Ads, they do kind of focus on the basics, and they try to limit the number of campaigns, and they try to have a very clean setup of markets, differentiated by markets, by products, by whatsoever. So you can really tell that these big successful players, and I'm not saying 100% of them, but the majority, you can really see a clear, clean setup, which of course lots of people work on, lots of agencies have been supporting that potentially. But that's also a difference to maybe rather smaller advertisers, maybe also less experienced one that just, I don't know, they see something and they want to do it immediately, and they kind of skip the 5 steps in between from where they are and where they want to be. And then it leads to dissatisfaction big time, often.
Yeah, I have this this theory about that, because that is something that I have been thinking about a lot, and especially also now with the current state of LinkedIn, with all the comment X to get this thing. You know, it's such a I get why it works on LinkedIn, because you get a lot of engagement and the post goes viral easily, etc., etc. So I'm not trying to bash that, but I look at that and I think, okay, why it's oftentimes the same people who I see commenting on certain things, an audit template here, another audit template there, and then, oh, this strategy and this checklist, this cheat sheet. And I think that the reason why people are so attracted to these things, first of all, is human nature. I mean, who doesn't like something that is completely shiny? I'm not saying that I have that as well, totally, always, with everything. So I have to pull myself back always to go back to the fundamentals. But I think, as you also said, the more experience you get, the more you know what is required to do the thing to drive results. And I think if you have a little bit less experience, or if you, because of the industry is changing so fast, I think a lot of people are getting overwhelmed. And because of this, they are looking for all kinds of things that might be the solution for their problems. But those people who are actually advanced and super experienced, they know that, no, this is all a distraction. Let me just focus on, as you said, setting the right goals, tracking the right conversions, making sure that your Google Ads strategy aligns with your overarching business goals, where you have to choose between growth and efficiency and not say we want to do both of those things. I think if you have done that before, then you see that, yeah, that was the thing that drove results for us, and everything else is just a distraction, and we're just going to leave that aside. So I think a lot of people are probably overwhelmed by how the industry is changing, and then they are attracted to all these fancy shiny objects.
Yeah, and it's fair, because it is changing a lot. And what I mentioned in the beginning in my introduction, I mean, the course of just like 5 years, the amount of changes that I've seen from inside of Google, but all of you and everyone that's listening or watching has seen as well, from different campaign types and this and changes. And I mean, I see it as a creator on LinkedIn myself. The algorithm changes, and out of a sudden what has been working doesn't work anymore. And I think just recently, without going into too much like politics talk, TikTok example was just very similar. Out of a sudden it's gone. What do you do then? And I think that's also where it's super easy to get overwhelmed. And maybe all experts and all platforms need to do better education on, how to not be so overwhelmed, because at the end of the day, things change. And as long as you get the basics right, and I'm a strong believer in that, I'm sure that you will manage with these changes. And they might be tricky, and they might be different from how you used to run things in the past. And they might not always be perfect, and there might be, I don't know, auto-generated assets that you agree with or you don't, and that you like or you don't. But I'm sure if you focus on the basics, you'll figure out a way how to deal with it, and whether that's ignoring or adapting or something in the middle, but you'll find a way, as long as you kind of stay true to whatever your strategy is and don't get too blindsided by jumping on every trend. At least not fully, because of course following trends and trying and experimenting is also really, really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey guys, real quick, if you like this episode, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss anything in the future, and feel free to share with a friend, colleague, or family member, because that's the only way we can grow the show. All right, back to the show. So you mentioned measurement, goals, the right strategy. Is there anything else that you would say is really foundational to getting results with Google Ads that we've missed?
I think from there on, it goes into the campaign types, where I would say nowadays it's search, which is still bread and butter of Google search, and most likely will remain that way in the at least near future, and then PMax, which differs a little bit by business model. For e-commerce, I would say PMax is a no-brainer. For lead generation, it's been getting better and better also, and it's just doing a lot of things automatically, and it saves a lot of work and resources that you would otherwise have to put. So I would then take it from there and then go into the bidding strategies and the budgets, which I think budget is a very, very specific discussion, but the bidding strategies should really follow the goals that you've set as a business in the beginning. And then of course there are specific strategies of you don't set a certain ROAS until you hit a threshold of conversions and all of these, but kind of have in mind where you want to get these strategies to at the end, like what's the end goal in terms of conversion goals or efficiency, profitability, whatever. So I would say measurement, tracking, bidding strategies, and then budget should be part of that discussion as well, because realistically, even though I said earlier growth mindset and the more the better, especially smaller advertisers and businesses, of course, start off with a certain budget, and that's completely the right way. And I wouldn't pour all money, unlimited budgets into a new channel right away, but then from there kind of have that budget discussion and question your budget decisions also a little bit on whether they make sense. Are they still up to date? Are they still delivering the same results as in the past? Because that's also what I see a lot of people being stuck in, not just with all technicalities and everything, but just being like, oh, I spent that amount of money 5 years ago and it gave me these results. And here I am spending the same amount, having worse results and complaining and wondering why that's happening, while, you know, the whole world suffers from inflation and higher prices and more competition and everything. So bids and budgets would then be the kind of next step.
Yeah. And these are all things, apart from maybe your goals, all things that involve Google Ads, what you do inside of Google Ads, what you can do within the user interface and the things that we can pull to drive results. As you said, like your campaign structure, bids and budgets. I'm sure ads are in there as well, etc. Do you, as a senior digital growth strategist at Google, do you also talk to your clients about the things that influence performance outside of Google Ads? So let's say, for example, we think there's two things to Google Ads, and I believe, and Bob also, we believe that Google Ads is simplifying because of automation and AI. I wouldn't say necessarily that it is easier to drive results, but the system is simplifying. And that means that there are fewer levers to pull than back in the day. And now you should have more time available to focus on the things outside of Google Ads, which in our opinion have really like disproportionate amount of impact on results, like refining offers, creating conversion optimized landing pages, helping clients with their unit economics, because oftentimes you can have all these things you said, you can have right measurement, the right strategy, structure, bids and budgets, etc. But if for e-com brands, if they have 20% margin, then it instantly becomes really, really hard. So do you talk to your clients about those things as well?
100%. And I would recommend everyone, whether it's freelancers, agencies, or marketing managers in companies, to also speak to their advertisers, to their clients, to their managers, to their employees about these topics as well. Because I'm not going to lie, I'm not a technical expert on all of these. So I think even like conversion rate optimization or landing page optimization or everything is like such a unique and highly specialized field of business. But knowing it, addressing it, or at least kind of understanding what the different cross effects are, I definitely try to address that with advertisers. Also, that's a bit of the downside of the bigger companies, where they often work in such silos of whoever is in charge of Google Ads is not in charge of the landing page, is not in charge of the pricing, and then kind of getting the right people all in the same room. That's something that I loved in working with smaller businesses, because usually you have one person and they have, like, if they want to change something, they change it by tomorrow. But having that conversation for sure. And I remember in your in the preparation email you sent prior to the podcast today, Miles, you mentioned something about what would be recommendations I would give to people learning PPC or online marketing and everything. And I was thinking I would always recommend also understanding the business side of things. You don't have to do a business degree at a fancy university in order to become successful in Google Ads and PPC and online marketing, but speaking the language of the people in the industry or your clients, if you're an agency, for example, or if you're a manager, if you are a marketing manager in a company, is so important, because at the end of the day, I don't think AI is going to replace anyone. But if all you are doing as a PPC manager, as a Google Ads manager, is optimizing keywords, changing bits, and kind of writing ad copy, then there is a high chance that AI is already doing that and will continue to do that. Maybe not even better, but quicker and much, much cheaper than you are. And then people, and I don't want to, go to the worst case scenario here, but then people are risking their job. However, if you add on top of that and do exactly what you were just saying, let the AI optimize whatever is happening in Google Ads, but I'm telling you, hey, your conversion rate is just not good compared to others, and your checkout has various steps where I, as a user, I just get frustrated, and that's why a conversion rate is just not as good. Or. These are all the conversations that I don't see any AI taking away from humans at the moment. And that's why two different approaches. I would recommend every business to look into that, and I would every PPC specialist to also, even though not being an absolute expert on that, but at least be aware, create that awareness, and then maybe find a colleague, another agency that is good at what they do in that field of expertise, and tackle that as well. Because at the end of the day, Google Ads is kind of a means to an end, and the end usually occurs where a user is on a website, and from there to actually generating sales for a business, there's such a long process, and so many things can go wrong in that. So yes, I'm talking to my my clients about that. I'd love to talk even more, because it is so important, definitely.
Yeah, that's great that you're doing that, and I think we're going to see more of that, and I think that's where Google Ads specialists also have to evolve towards, because of all the automation and AI and how Google Ads is simplifying in that sense. If you're looking at how can you find your edge, back in the day, we had super. When I started in 2018. Was right around when smart bidding was starting to get a bit better, but it was not great yet. So that was the moment when the agency that I worked at, we were still heavily testing, manual bidding with all kinds of bid rules and bid layers, etc., versus smart bidding. And then after a year or so, smart bidding became just the go-to thing to use, and it just became so good that it's just a no-brainer to use in almost all cases. And then now, if you look at the time spent back then defining all those rules and everything, you can find your edge truly inside of Google Ads, because you had the single keyword ad groups and all the campaigns, etc. And
Absolutely.
Now that's totally changing now. You wanted to add something to that?
Yeah, for sure, because I love that example, and we talked a lot about not getting too distracted with what's happening left and right, but also sometimes having a bit of trust into what's happening in the industry, because what we see a lot of times inside of Google is certain features, certain products, campaign types, whatever, being released, and are they always perfect from day one? I don't know. That's for others to judge. But what I've experienced a lot, and you just mentioned it with smart bidding, for example, where you said in the beginning it wasn't so good. Looking at what we've accomplished since then, and I don't mean Google, I mean the advertising industry, how well it's performing. I think that's an important thing to remember, that sometimes we see, and I saw the same with Broadmatch, which made such a huge improvement through, I guess, AI in 2024, or starting in end of 2023. If I would have told that to people 3 years ago, 4 years ago, no one would have believed that. And I think we saw a similar thing with PMax. And we had demand gen, which was one of the, I think, very first campaign types that from the beginning actually was delivering. But there's other things. 2024, I saw a lot of success with the new customer acquisition feature, which is kind of going into this whole customer lifetime value discussion. So I think often there's a lot of things where it goes back to, of course, it's always easy to distrust, to always try to challenge and to never adapt to new things. And I would always say, be careful what to do and kind of have all the right kind of measures in place and tracking to prove that whatever you are experimenting with is working, but also completely shutting off from like all new innovation. I think it's also not the right thing. And I think you wrote a very interesting piece on LinkedIn about that just the other day of fighting Google kind of for the sake of fighting. And I think that's what I also experience a lot of people doing. And, you know, I'm not saying stop doing it, but I think there's a lot of energy wasted on kind of the wrong things rather than taking whatever it is, experimenting a little bit. And if broad match is not working for you, fine, but then let's find something else that is working and not just stop working at all because we've identified one thing that, you know, wasn't the right fit for this ads account, this strategy, this business.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. And we've always, I was like that early on in my career as well. I've been trained by some of the best Google Ads specialists that I knew working at the agency back in the day. There were some really good people there, and they've really taught me how to think. And it's always a matter of just test for yourself, you know. And yeah, as you said, if it doesn't work, okay, maybe try again in a couple of months. As you said, all those campaign types and features, they are usually pretty bad in the beginning. Like Performance Max, it was so basic when it was launched, but then now they're building and building upon it. And you know, like for a fact, because it is Google's flagship product, they're doing everything, allocating all the resources they can to make it better. Same with Broad Match, Smart Shopping when it was launched. Also, you know, you see the same progression all the time, which is why I think it is important to keep testing over time. Even if it doesn't work for you today, try again in 6 months.
Because who knows what will be the next thing that in 2 years you and I will sit together and say, oh yeah, back in the days it wasn't working, but now it's the number one thing that drives success, right? So I would also encourage everyone just to always set a little test, whether it's budget or resources or just evolve and try and experiment.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk a little bit about your role working at Google. Do you feel as a well, I don't know if I could call you a Google rep because your role is definitely different. I think when people say Google reps, they often think about teleperformance, and they have a pretty bad reputation because, from my experience, the difference, and this is just outside looking in, the difference is kind of with teleperformance, they have much stricter sales targets. I feel you don't have to agree or disagree, whatever you want. But it feels like they have much stricter sales targets and they're doing much more outbound, calling Google Ads specialists, brands, businesses, etc. But then when you look at the team that is in Dublin, are you based in Dublin?
I am, yes.
Yeah. And the teams that I also have worked with in the past on some of my bigger clients, they were always super smart, great ideas. As you said, the things that you described in this conversation, it's a total different level. But do you ever get the feeling like that reputation that the teleperformance Google reps have, that you sort of have to fight for? Hey, I'm actually different than I work differently from those, and I actually have real value to bring. Is that something that is true for you?
Mm-hmm. In my day-to-day job, not anymore. So in the program or the org I'm working in now, with the advertisers that I'm working with, never. On LinkedIn, where I'm also quite active and also posting about different topics, not just Google and Google Ads, but also, of course, a lot about that. There, I do come across that quite some time, and I think it's always important to understand for people what the different structures within Google are, and also at the end of the day that, of course, me, just as everyone at other companies or in other roles, is at the end of the day doing doing a job. Just that we in Google, at least, we do understand that if we are doing a good job and whatever we advise on or even sell is working out for an advertiser, there's a chance of them being successful with it, happy with it, and potentially spending more. So I think at the end of the day, my job is, of course, to make Google successful, but the way to get there, I at least personally have a very customer-centric approach of making sure that, you know, if you are my advertiser and we work with together and I recommend you something and it's working, am I encourage you to pour more money into it? Yes, but I would also do that as a friend and as a consultant, because if it's working, back to growth mindset, it's working. If it's not working, if we've experimented with demand gen and maybe it turns out that your business is just not, I don't know, your product is just not visually appealing, or it's just for whatever reason not the good fit for demand gen, then I also want to be the trusted advisor to say, okay, let's maybe reshift some budget here and there. And I think that's very important. And I think that does, for me, it certainly came with experience. So do I come across that in my day-to-day job? No. On LinkedIn, yes. And everyone, I don't know, being aware of these things, I think it's just always important to you know, understand each other's kind of ambitions, plans, goals, preferences, and then find a way of working together, which for me, in the last 5.5 years has most of the time always worked pretty well. And yeah, I'm kind of happy that that's the case, at least in our teams here in Dublin.
Yeah, that's cool, man. So let's look a little bit into the future. We started this conversation. You mentioned that you feel like the AI is improving, auto-generated assets are improving. What trends do you foresee for the PPC industry, in specifically Google Ads, or it can be PPC industry broadly, in 2025 and beyond? And how do you see the role of AI evolving in the next couple of years? And again, if there's anything that you can't say because of NDA, because you're working at Google, please don't say what you can't. But what you can say from your experience, just I'm curious to hear that from you.
I think what we probably mentioned too many times by now will continue to be a big priority is measurement and tracking, first-party data, and whether that's cookies where no one really knows where it's going, or all types of measurement and data policy, especially in the EU, a very rightfully very important topic. So that will continue to be important, and I think there'll be more and more features kind of helping that, but also a bit of uncertainty about regulations coming up. So I think that they'll, with whatever changes, innovations or features, continue to be a driver. Second, you mentioned the role of AI. I think that AI will continue to be a bigger kind of supporter of our everyday job, and whether that is through automation in Google Ads or through just being a tool that people can use to do research, to do optimization on ads, or even creation of videos and everything. And then thirdly, and I think that's something that Google, together with AI, is also kind of pushing for in Google Ads, is this whole combination of really tying Google Ads metrics more into a business success. And that shows already in the new customer acquisition feature, that shows into all the customer lifetime value, that shows in the profitability bidding, which is tested at the moment. So all of these kind of efforts to really make sure whatever Google Ads is achieving, or whatever Google Ads leads to, actually has a solid business impact for the advertiser. And that, of course, requires kind of the combination of everything, because it goes hand in hand with the right measurement foundations. It then goes hand in hand with the idea of, okay, what can we do beyond the actual Google Ads? So what's the business case here? What is the differentiation between new customers and existing customers? So all that, like off Google Ads platform conversations that we touched upon a few minutes ago. And Google, I think, will do a lot of progress into that direction, because I think rightfully it is still one of the biggest challenges that a lot of advertisers have, is to kind of prove okay, the money that I'm investing here, how much success is it driving at the end of the day? And I think that's what Google is trying to prove, will continue to prove. And we'll also make sure to put the measures in place, and whether that's reportings or new features or bidding strategies or just more explanations in order to show advertisers. And then hopefully that will also make it easier to make the right investment decisions for advertisers in channels, in advertising channels in general, and then also Google Ads specific in like certain campaign types of features. So I probably forgot about 2-3 other things, but I think these are the big ones. Video, YouTube. And I think that's not really a surprise, but also looking at all the different market predictions of video. I mean, we see video everywhere on LinkedIn, even nowadays, where no one really saw it coming. No one really knows whether it's working, but it's there. And I'm sure it will continue to be there. YouTube within the Google Ads strategy. And I think also within online marketing will certainly continue to grow. And AI, which I think that was your initial question, will, in my opinion, also help to make that accessible to more and more advertisers in a hopefully very performance-driven and efficient way.
Yeah, I love that, man. And so in terms of measurement, you mentioned that looking holistically at data and not just Google Ads and new customer acquisition versus returning customers, etc. The only concern that I have with this topic when it comes from Google is that and I think there's a lot of good ambitions from Google back in a couple of years, that's 6-7 years ago, they wanted to launch what was it called, Google Attribution, I believe, and now with GA4, etc., and the new the marketing mix modeling tool. Can you remind me of the name?
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but it's it's fine. It's a Google owned marketing mix modeling tool to really see like the value of different channels, etc. When you have conversations with your clients about this, what do you take as the truth in terms of data? Because the concern that I have for brands is if we look only at what Google is saying about data, is that we risk that it becomes biased. You understand what I mean? So that's why there are third-party attribution tools who have their own way of attributing, which I'm also not saying that it is crystal clear or absolutely like 100% the truth, but it is at least based on sort of a non-biased outcome that is not skewing towards, for example, a Meta or a Google or a TikTok. So what is your how do you look at that?
I look at it just as differentiated. I mean, especially attribution. I think it's always kind of a discussion around beliefs. You believe one, you believe the other. I'm a big believer of the data. So what I try to look at with my advertisers is kind of see, okay, if we had X amount of sales from the business side in the last, let's say, months, we compare that to conversions that we measure in ads. We compare that to conversions that we measure in analytics, and potentially if they have a third-party measurement tool, we compare to that, and we kind of try to find the middle. From my experience, that never adds up to 100%, whether that's Google-owned or external or third-party or whatever. But I always try to go with that approach. The fact that Google products work the most and the most efficient with Google data, I think that's not a secret. Just as I don't know, Gmail works better with Google Sheets than with Excel. I think that kind of goes hand in hand. That shouldn't be a recommendation for an advertiser to strictly because of that do it one way or the other. But I would always try to again look and see and then compare. And also apply a bit of rule of thumb. Like if you know 80% of your traffic is coming from Google, don't blindly believe that 80% of your sales is coming from Google as well. But there's a high chance that there's a bit of correlation, and it might be the other way around. It might be 20% of traffic and 80 coming from Meta or from whatever other channel. So doing a bit of a sense check, because at the end of the day, I think there's a lot of different approaches to that, and I'm a big advocate of everyone finding their own. And if my advertisers want to work with third-party attribution tools that work better, I'm going to explain them why they shouldn't. And if they do, that's fine also, because at the end of the day, it's about what this business wants to achieve, how they're achieving it. Is it working for them? Yes. Okay, cool. Then let's scale it from there. And if not, let's look at alternatives.
Yeah, it's a good pragmatic way of looking at it. All right, man. So what I want to do now is fire a few rapid fire questions your way. And you can just answer either quickly or give a little bit more context if you want. And the first question that I have for you is, when it comes to Performance Max, would you choose feed only or full asset Performance Max?
I would go full asset based on what I said in the beginning. Not just because I said it in the beginning, but also because I'm a believer. I would go full asset. I would, however, look a little bit of what other campaigns are running in parallel, what's working, what's not. So I would look at it, differentiate it. If it is a yes or no question or either or, I would go full asset coverage. And I think it will prove to be one of the go-to strategies that also is successful in 2025. And maybe we can get back to that question end of the year and see how it developed until then.
Nice. All right. Do you think Google will lose more search market share in the upcoming months or years, which is kind of a topic of the last couple of weeks?
That's an interesting one. I don't think they'll lose market share. I think it depends a little bit on how you measure that and how search versus AI overview versus Gemini will work out. And I just recently saw this interview of Google CEO saying he wants 500 million users using Gemini, I think in this year or by sometime this year. If that somehow means Google search as well. So answer to the question, I don't know, because it depends a little bit on how you define search market share. I think there's always a need for search. There's always a need for finding information, and whether that's happening on search.com or on Gemini, I think the devil there lays a little bit in the detail, but it'll be interesting for sure, because there's a lot of things happening in the space. And I mean, there's not just Google, there's countless of other ChatGPT and even further alternatives on finding information. So interesting, but I'm very confident in Google, and that might be a biased opinion, but it is mine.
Fair enough. It's an opinion. Lead gen or e-commerce?
E-commerce, simply because I'm working in e-commerce. I got to say though, sometimes I'm a bit jealous of the lead gen colleagues from my team, because it does tend to be true that lead gen does the amazing, nice YouTube videos and budgets and kind of not so efficiency driven, where in e-commerce, you optimize for 0.01 something, whatever optimization, whereas in lead gen, it's like, all right, cool, let's do a branding campaign. But I got to say e-commerce, and it's also my specialty and my field of expertise.
Cool. All right, last of that is, what's the best Google Ads advice you've ever gotten?
That is a very, very good one. That's a very, very good one. And I don't know. I'm stuck with the what we can't measure, we don't treasure. But I don't know. I would say get the basics right, fundamentals, and then build from there. But this is probably not the best one I've ever gotten. But it's the one that comes to my mind that I actually think about a lot when I work with especially new accounts. So get the basics right, and probably applies to so many areas in life.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. All right, then I have one final closing question: is if you had to give PPC experts, whether it is experienced ones or people who are just starting out, one tip that can improve their careers, what would that be?
I would, for the beginners, I would recommend to get the basics right and learn them. For the more experienced people, I would go beyond that and make sure to specialize in something. And whether that is because there's a need for it, or because you're really, really good at it, or just because you want to associate your brand to that, But I think being a generalist forever does leave you a chance of being replaced by someone that just does it better. So if you get the basics right, and then kind of find your niche in something, and whether that is you'll become the e-commerce person, you'll become the script person, whether you'll become the YouTube person, the creative guy, whatever it is, I think that would be my recommendation. So once you get to know the basics, make sure you find something that you enjoy, that you are good at, and that people have a need for, and make sure that you pour some energy into that, while of course not forgetting the basics, because the basics are evolving as well. Yeah. But specialize if you are already experienced.
That's really solid, man, and it's a perfect way to end this. So Maximilian, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people follow you?
Mostly on LinkedIn. If they try really hard, they can find me on Instagram as well. But LinkedIn, Maximilian 𝗲𝗄𝗧, that's where you can find me, where everyone can find a lot about my life at Google, Google Ads, Google, YouTube, tips, insights, everything. So I'd be happy to connect there. And also if people want to reach out, have a question, let me know. That'd be the preferred and the best way of finding and connecting with me.
Awesome. So yeah, I would urge everyone to go ahead and follow you, Maximilian 𝗲𝗄𝗧 on LinkedIn. And you're one of the most active people who work at Google, I think, when it comes to building your personal brand, which is also something that I actually wanted to touch on in this chat, but we're out of time. So let's keep that for another conversation. Feel free to come back anytime. And thank you for coming on, man.
Thank you very much for having me, Miles. Thanks for that. And happy to be back whenever you want me.
All right, man. All right, that's the end of this episode of the PPC Mastery Podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you don't want to miss any future episodes, we're going to be back next week. Then don't forget to subscribe and share with a friend, family member, or a colleague, because that's the only way we can grow this show. Now, there's 2 more things I want to share with you if you want to take your Google Ads game to the next level. The first one is, if you want to get advanced Google Ads tips delivered straight into your inbox on Mondays and Fridays, head over to ppcmastery.com/newsletter to subscribe to our newsletter called the PPC Edge. And next to that, if you want to really take your skills to the next level and become the best Google Ads specialist you can possibly be, then consider joining the PPC Hub, which is our coaching and community platform for experienced Google Ads specialists. You can find everything about it on ppcmastery.com/hub. And with that said, I'll catch you in next week's episode. Peace.